Many of us crave love and connection, yet the path to intimacy can sometimes feel fraught with obstacles. We long for that safe haven, that secure base, but something holds us back. Today, we're going to talk about one of these hurdles, avoidant attachment. It's more common than you might think, and it often disguises itself as independence or a preference for solitude. Avoidant attachment is a pattern of behavior rooted in our early experiences, often formed in childhood. It's not about not wanting connection, but rather it's about struggling to feel safe and secure within those connections. This can lead to behaviors that inadvertently push others away, even those we deeply care about. Recognizing the signs of avoidant attachment is a courageous first step towards understanding ourselves better. It's about acknowledging our own patterns, the ways we might unconsciously sabotage closeness or build walls to protect ourselves. This journey isn't about blame, but about self-compassion. As we shine a light on these patterns, we open ourselves up to the possibility of change. We can begin to rewrite our own stories, to move from a place of fear and avoidance to one of courage and connection. This understanding allows us to build more authentic and fulfilling relationships, both with ourselves and with others. One of the most prominent signs of avoidant attachment is a deep-seated difficulty in trusting others. This distrust isn't always obvious. It often manifests subtly, like a whisper in the back of our minds, casting doubt on the intentions of even those closest to us. We might find ourselves questioning their motives, wondering if they'll eventually let us down or leave us vulnerable. This difficulty trusting others often stems from a fear of vulnerability. When we open ourselves up to someone, we risk getting hurt. And for someone with an avoidant attachment style, that risk can feel overwhelming. So we build walls, we keep people at arm's length, all in an attempt to protect ourselves from potential pain. But here's the paradox. In building these walls, in holding others at bay, we actually perpetuate the very thing we fear: disconnection. We create distance in an attempt to avoid pain, but that distance itself becomes a source of suffering. It's a self-protective mechanism, yes, but one that ultimately keeps us from experiencing the true depth of connection. Recognizing this pattern of distrust is crucial. It's about noticing those moments when we hesitate to let someone in, when we question their intentions, or when we struggle to believe in the goodness of others. This awareness is the first step towards dismantling those walls, brick by brick, and allowing ourselves to experience the beauty of genuine trust. When we talk about fear of intimacy, it's important to understand what we mean by intimacy. It's not just about physical closeness, but about emotional closeness as well. It's about letting someone truly see us, know us, and understand us at our core. And for someone with an avoidant attachment style, that level of vulnerability can feel terrifying. This fear might manifest as a reluctance to share our feelings, to engage in deep conversations, or to let someone fully into our inner world. We might keep our guard up, even in romantic relationships, avoiding those heart-to-heart connections that can lead to profound intimacy. We've talked about trust and intimacy, two incredibly vulnerable terrains to navigate, especially if you have an avoidant attachment style. And often, where we see those two show up is in the way emotional distance manifests in relationships. It's like there's an invisible wall, right? A barrier that you've unconsciously erected to protect yourself from potential hurt. You might keep your partner at arm's length, sharing very little of your inner world, your dreams, your fears, your joys. But here's the thing about walls. They don't just keep people out. They also keep us trapped inside, locked away from experiencing the fullness of connection. And that's the paradox of emotional distance. We believe it keeps us safe, but it actually prevents us from experiencing the true belonging that we crave. So, how do we begin to dismantle this wall, brick by vulnerable brick? It starts with recognizing it's there, acknowledging its presence in our lives and relationships. Because only then can we start to understand the story behind its construction and begin the courageous work of taking it down. We live in a culture that often glorifies independence, the self-made individual, the lone wolf, the one who needs nothing from no one. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with valuing our own company and capabilities, for those with an avoidant attachment style, this desire for independence can become another layer of protection around the heart. Because true independence isn't about shutting people out or refusing help. It's about knowing ourselves well enough to know when we need support and having the courage to ask for it. It's about understanding that vulnerability isn't weakness, but the birthplace of courage, connection, and love. Yet, for someone with an avoidant attachment style, the very idea of needing someone else can feel deeply unsettling. It can trigger those old fears of being too much, too needy, or even scarier, being abandoned. So you strive for self-sufficiency in all areas of your life. You become fiercely independent, convinced that needing others is a liability, a sign of weakness. But underneath that carefully constructed facade of self-reliance lies a deep-seated fear of vulnerability. Many of us struggle to articulate our emotions, to find the words to express the vast spectrum of what we're feeling. But for individuals with an avoidant attachment style, expressing feelings can feel like navigating a foreign land without a map. It's not that you don't experience emotions. You feel things deeply. But somewhere along the way, maybe in childhood, maybe later in life, you learned that expressing those emotions led to discomfort, rejection, or pain. So you learned to suppress them, to keep them hidden away, locked tight in the vault of your heart. Over time, this suppression builds a wall, a barrier between you and the outside world. You might find yourself struggling to express your needs, hesitant to share your joys and sorrows, and even find yourself withdrawing from those closest to you. This emotional guardedness might feel like the safest option, but it comes at a cost. Because when we shut down our emotions, we also shut down our capacity for true connection. We deny ourselves and our loved ones the opportunity to truly know and be known, to experience the depth and richness of genuine intimacy. Have you ever found yourself in a room with someone you deeply care about, yet the silence between you feels deafening, like a wall, invisible yet impenetrable, has been erected? This, my friends, is the terrain of conflict avoidance, a common hallmark of avoidant attachment. When we avoid conflict, we often believe we're keeping the peace. But the truth is, we're silencing ourselves, our needs and our desires, in an attempt to maintain a sense of control and prevent potential rejection. We trade authenticity for the illusion of harmony, and in the process, we disconnect from ourselves and those we love. Conflict, as uncomfortable as it can be, is an opportunity for growth, for understanding, and for deepening connection. It's in the messy middle of disagreement that we discover our boundaries, learn to communicate our needs, and build stronger, more resilient relationships. Remember, true belonging doesn't require us to tiptoe around our truth. It invites us to show up fully, imperfections and all, ready to engage in the courageous act of both speaking and listening with an open heart. Imagine for a moment that you're carrying a suitcase. Not just any suitcase, but one that holds all of your emotions. The joy, the sadness, the anger, the fear, every feeling you've ever experienced is carefully packed inside. For those with avoidant attachment, this suitcase often feels incredibly heavy, a burden they carry with them everywhere they go. The thing about emotional suppression is that it's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes an immense amount of energy, and eventually it's bound to resurface, often in ways we least expect. It can manifest as irritability, withdrawal, even physical symptoms. We may think we're protecting ourselves or others by keeping our emotions in check, but the reality is, unexpressed emotions don't simply disappear. They fester beneath the surface, impacting our well-being and our relationships in countless unseen ways. Just like we need to unpack our physical bags after a long journey, we also need to unpack our emotional baggage. This requires creating a safe space for ourselves and with trusted others, where we can acknowledge, process, and release the emotions we've been holding captive for far too long. The yearning for connection is woven into the very fabric of our being. It's as essential to our well-being as food, water, and shelter. Yet for those with avoidant attachment, the path toward intimacy is often paved with fear. Fear of being truly seen, fear of losing themselves in another, fear of repeating the patterns of the past. This fear can manifest as a deep-seated aversion to commitment. It's not necessarily that individuals with avoidant attachment don't desire love or partnership, but the idea of fully letting someone in, of building a life together, can feel deeply threatening. There's a misconception that those with avoidant attachment are fiercely independent loners who prefer solitude above all else. While it's true that they value their autonomy, this desire for independence is often a defense mechanism, a way of protecting themselves from the perceived dangers of closeness. The truth is, beneath the surface of self-sufficiency lies a deep longing for connection, a yearning to be known and loved for who they truly are, imperfections and all. It's just that the fear of vulnerability, of being hurt or rejected, often eclipses this desire, leading them to prioritize self-preservation over the messy beauty of intimacy. We often see self-reliance as a strength, and don't get me wrong, it certainly can be. But when we're talking about avoidant attachment, high self-reliance can be a defense mechanism, a way to keep others at arm's length. It's the person who says, "I don't need anyone, I can do it all myself." And on the surface, it may seem like they're thriving, but underneath, there's often a deep fear of vulnerability. You see, true connection requires vulnerability. It requires us to let someone see our messy, imperfect selves. But for someone with avoidant attachment, that level of vulnerability can feel terrifying. So they build walls, create fortresses of self-sufficiency, all in an effort to protect themselves from getting hurt. But here's the thing about fortresses. They may keep danger out, but they also keep connection out. And deep down, we all crave connection. We all want to experience the joy and belonging that comes from letting someone truly see us. So if you find yourself constantly pushing people away, if you find yourself saying, "I'm fine," even when you're not, it might be time to explore those feelings of self-reliance, to ask yourself, what am I protecting myself from? And is it worth the cost of genuine connection? This one's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? We're all hardwired for connection, for intimacy. Yet for someone with avoidant attachment, closeness can feel like a threat. It can trigger feelings of anxiety, even fear. It's the feeling of wanting connection, but then pulling away when things start to feel too close, too real. This discomfort with closeness often stems from past experiences, often from childhood, where vulnerability was met with hurt or rejection. Maybe a caregiver was emotionally unavailable, or perhaps there was a breach of trust that left a lasting wound. Whatever the reason, the unconscious belief becomes, if I get too close, I'll get hurt. And so, the dance begins. A dance of pushing and pulling, of wanting connection but fearing its consequences. It's a painful cycle, one that can leave both parties feeling frustrated and alone. But here's the thing about cycles. They can be broken. It takes courage, it takes vulnerability, but it's possible to rewrite the narrative, to learn that closeness doesn't have to equal pain. It's about taking baby steps, about setting boundaries, and about learning to trust yourself and others in a whole new way. Understanding avoidant attachment is like shining a light on those hidden patterns that might be holding us back from experiencing the deep, meaningful connections we all crave. It's about recognizing that these patterns often stem from a place of protection, a way to shield ourselves from getting hurt. But here's the thing about shields. They may protect us from pain, but they also prevent us from experiencing the fullness of love and connection. The journey towards secure attachment, towards healthier, more fulfilling relationships, starts with awareness. It starts with acknowledging those avoidant tendencies and understanding the experiences that shape them. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. There are resources available, there are therapists who specialize in attachment styles, and there's a whole community of people who understand what you're going through. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to my channel for more insightful content on relationships, vulnerability, and personal growth. And always remember, you are worthy of love, you are worthy of connection, and you have the power within you to create the relationships you desire.